Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Welcome to my weekly challenge guide. I do want to take a bit of time though to apologize that it is probably going to be incredibly late. Usually I'll kind of have these up and ready on the Friday that it actually refreshes. Unfortunately, during my move, I had a bunch of internet hiccups and I guess mishaps that have just kind of put me so far behind that by the time you actually see this video, it's more than likely going to be a Tuesday morning. So I'm really just playing catch up at this point. Now in terms of the week, it is February week number 3. It will end on the 20th of Feb 2025 at midnight. In terms of the events this week, we have Sardegna Road Track C with the Japanese FF Challenge 450. That is one of the new events to the game with update 1.55 of course. We then move over to Tokyo Expressway on the east clockwise layout. That is for the Japanese 4-wheel drive challenge 600. After that, we stick over in Japan for the Kyoto Driving Park Yamagiwa and Miyabi layout. That is for the Hypercar Parade. After that, we have one of my dream special events. This is brand new for this week with the Dodge Viper 1 make at Daytona Road Course. That features every single generation of Dodge Viper, including race car variants. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed that one. And then we also have, to finish off, one of my favorite events in the entirety of GT7 at High Speed Ring, featuring the WTC 800 and the incredible randomized weather there. So let's head over to event number 1 this week. So for completing event number 1, we're going to bag ourselves 100,000 credits for one event completed on top of the typical payout for this event. Now in terms of the event, of course it is aimed at front wheel drive cars that are Japanese, around a 450 pp rating. Basically, it's going to be a grid littered with different types of Hondas. So for my choice of car for this one, it was the Honda Integra Type R 1995. Let's go ahead then and get into this event. As you can see, there are 8 cars in total on the grid, 7 AI over a 3-lap sprint race of this Sardegna layout that we never really get to see. Now there's a few ways that this event can play out. Now the first is that you get the slower cars at the front, which is what happened to me here, and they will actually slow down the faster cars. Those are mainly the Civic Type Rs and the Integra Type Rs, and that is the best way for the event to run. And the other way in which it can run is that the faster cars will spawn at the front and start building up a mega lead before you eventually chase them down. Now the reason you want the slower cars to kind of beginning at the front is because they'll actually hold up the faster cars for a very long time, allowing you to make moves incredibly quickly and grab the lead relatively early on. I did mine at the start of lap 2, overtaking this EG Civic. After that I went on to build up almost an 8-second lead, giving myself my first win of the week, and of course my first tick of the week on top of that. In terms of the event itself, its payout's relatively low at 37,500 credits. Of course, on top of that, we'll be combining the 100,000 credits for one event completed. Moving on then to event number 2. This is the Japanese 4-wheel drive challenge 600 at Tokyo Expressway east clockwise. Of course, aimed at 600 pp Japanese cars, which are 4-wheel drive. And it's really an open book in terms of what kind of car you can go for here. Now my car of choice is one that maybe not many really go for. That is the R33 GTR, and this will do the job with relative ease. Now because of the track layout here, it's a pretty long one, so it's only a 2-lap sprint, 10 cars in total, 9 AI. Now I fully recommend going for a car that is more built for top speed than really anything. This is an incredibly fast and flowing track. You've got the huge long start finish straight which goes on for an absolute eternity, mixed with some very fast sections. The only really slow part of this track is the final hairpin. You'll probably start picking cars off very quickly. As you can see, before I even got to turn 1, I was up in P6 and already battling for P5 not long down the road, overtaking the Mazda 3 and then battling with the Impreza Coupe there. After that, it was time to go ahead and hunt down the top 3 for this race, which was an Impreza, a Toyota Alphard and a Lancer Evo, and really I'd make quite short work of them. Again, I've got very good acceleration and top speed on this car, allowing me to just jump through the gaps and go ahead and pull out a decent lead. In the end, I would be almost 9 seconds up the road from P2 as we go across the line to get event number 2 of the week completed. And of course, that is going to give us our second tick of the week. The payout for this one, not very high once again, 55,500 credits for this one. Okay, so moving on to the third event of the week. This is the Hypercar Parade at Kyoto Driving Park Yamagiwa and the Miyabi Layout combined. Now, in terms of the Hypercar Parade, I've complained about it a lot in that it is very much a parade of some of Gran Turismo's finest and fastest cars that they really don't put up a fight whatsoever. My car of choice here would be the Aston Martin Vulcan, which will walk this event no problem whatsoever. So in terms of the event itself this week then, it is going to be a much bigger grid than what we saw with the last 2 events. So it's going to be 16 cars in total, 15 AI over a 4-lap sprint race. However, it's going to take a while considering just the sheer length of this track. As mentioned though, although the grid is made up of some of the fastest road cars in the game, again it is very much set out as a parade that there's really not much racing going on here. You are basically going to be overtaking one car, the next, and so on, and eventually be in the lead pretty early on. The only place you may need to watch out for when it comes to this specific track is just off the big downhill section. It's going to sweep right onto the Miyabi layout and it's going to be incredibly tight through there. So just be careful through that section of the track. The rest of it really suits a car that can carry its speed more than top speed. So things like the Bugatti Veyron that we're seeing here, whilst very quick on acceleration and a very good top speed, is going to be almost useless. Something like the Vulcan in the more tight technical sections is going to be able to carry much more speed and make very short work of the rest of the AI on offer here. So that is my recommendation for this week. As for the event itself, it's going to be done and dusted in just under 10 minutes. As you can see here, crossing line with a fairly massive lead to the rest of the field. That is going to be tick number 3 of the week. The payout for this one, relatively low, 100,000 credits for that event, and that is going to give us our 3-star roulette ticket reward for our daily driving marathon and 200,000 credits. Okay, so on to event number 4 then. This is the brand new special event, the Dodge Viper One Make Race. Now this takes place at Daytona Road Course, and honestly, it's one of my dream special events. I love the Dodge Viper, so to see every single generation crammed into one event is fantastic. Now in terms of an overview for this one, it's a 7-lap race with 16 AI made up of different Dodge Vipers, both road and race. Now in terms of the payout, it's relatively low, 120k for first place, 72 for second and 48 for third. Your main rival cars are a mixture of different generations of Dodge Viper of course. Now in terms of car restrictions here, BOP/tuning prohibited is off. It must be a garage car. Car settings are allowed. Mechanical damage is off, and same with shortcuts and wall collision penalties. Now my Dodge Viper of choice would be the original, the Dodge Viper GTS from 2002. Now as far as one make events go, I really enjoyed this one and I wanted it to be a challenge, and that's exactly what I got. Now in terms of the Dodge Vipers, the GTS from 2002 is almost kind of prehistoric in the way that it handles and the way that the brakes work. It is absolutely the worst in terms of handling performance and braking capability, meaning that whilst in the midsection and the actual infield I really couldn't do much, I had to then compensate for it with an insanely fast top speed. And well, it's the same for the other 2002 GTSs as well. You'll find that on the bankings and the high speed sections they're incredibly quick. However, through the sort of infield section, they'll really hold up some of the more modern cars, and you can use that to your advantage. One thing I did notice during this event is that the pack actually gets closer as the race goes on. So don't worry if you're still kind of mid to, front of the pack, but not quite first place, even up to the last lap, as you will be able to make those moves as the grid sort of, combines itself together with a few cars either way off the pace at the back, or maybe the front runners might pull out a little slight lead in comparison, which as you can see, is what happened here. So as a general rule of thumb, don't over panic if you kind of feel like you're not making too many moves. The pack in general is probably compacting together. As you can see, I didn't actually take the lead until the final part of the final lap. I really enjoyed this special event. That is tick number 4 of the week and 120,000 credits. So let's move on to the final event of the week. This is the WTC 800 over at the High Speed Ring, and it is perhaps one of my favourite events in the entirety of Gran Turismo 7. I love this thing. The event itself is absolutely fantastic because of that randomised weather that it features. Sometimes you'll get a downpour early on, sometimes it'll be late on, or maybe even in the middle of the event. My car of choice for this one would be the 2018 Nissan GT-R GT3. Now my strategy here, I figured out that the majority of the time when it comes to the wet weather, it'll either happen in the sort of mid to late stages. So I went for a set of racing hards and fuel mix 6 so I can try and get away with one single stop and just hope and pray that the rain doesn't come early. And thankfully that would not be the case for me, as this strategy worked absolutely flawlessly. Now, of course, I'm going to be losing a lot of top speed, of course, absolutely nerfing the car to fuel mix 6. However, I can just hang on in the slipstream and just make moves when I feel comfortable doing so. And this is the way I would go ahead and try and tackle this event. Even into the mid stages, we would see that the rain was very slowly creeping over. At first it moved away and then sort of came back. And it was on the start of lap 9 where the wet weather would eventually come in. And unfortunately, I should have really pitted at the end of lap 8. Staying out till lap 9 really put me at a bit of a disadvantage, spinning around and just getting caught out by the absolute downpour that was going on here. However, so was the AI. We managed to make an extra position going into the pits, that put us in P2, and then I decided to play the strategy of intermediates. Some cars were going for heavy wets at this point, but my thinking is that if I can get on the inters, the heavy downpour should start drying up relatively quickly. So at that point it's going to be mainly intermediate conditions for the rest of the event, and then when it starts to dry up I can just find the wet patches and just go ahead and keep them in pretty good enough condition that I don't have to pit again. So we leave the pits around about 10 seconds behind the lead car with a 1 second penalty. Eventually I would get rid of that penalty for cutting the pit line, take the lead on lap 11 going on to lap 12, and then just continue to build up my lead from there. All I had to really do was just watch out whilst I was lapping the traffic, and in the end, after completing 20 laps, I would lap the entire field here, just turning the engine up in the end to get myself across the line, and of course completing it with one single stop. So there we go, that is all 5 events done and dusted for this week. The payout for this one, I didn't get the clean race bonus of course, 160,000 credits. So not the best, but we do get boosted up with 500,000 credits on top of this. Okay, so it's time to open up our rewards for this week. Now we do have our daily marathon first, which unfortunately was just a 3-star roulette ticket. Now in terms of this one, it's perhaps going to give me some of the weakest prizes in the game, and that's exactly what we're going to end up with. Now we did end up with a part from this 3-star, and that is going to be a high lift camshaft for the Toyota 86 GT Limited. After that, it's all about the credits. We get 100,000 credits for 1 event completed. Opening up our second one is 200,000 credits for 3 events completed, and then the final one is 500k for all 5 events completed. And there we go, that is the weekly challenges for this week. Don't worry, when it comes to Friday I will have that video available on the day. There'll be no more missing weekly challenges and no more delays in content. Thankfully I am back now, I'm fully settled and I'm ready to go. Huge thank you to my channel members on the screen now, and a huge thank you to everyone that has supported me recently. Of course I did have that bit of a health scare and the whole moving thing. It's been an incredibly stressful time, but thankfully we are coming out the other end of it now. Thank you so much to each and every single one of you. Peace.